Hello, everyone. So, this is just a short lesson, but a really potent and powerful lesson on how we can practically implement the tools of visualization because visualization is so incredibly powerful and it can completely transform our horsemanship journeys and also all aspects of our lives. And there is a quote from Bob Proctor where he used to always say, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. And for me, I used to hear this and just think, well, that's a lovely thought, but I didn't really truly believe it. And it wasn't until I started to believe this on a subconscious level that things started to shift for me. And I shared a post about this in my free Facebook group, The Healed Horseman's Journey. And I'll drop a link below if you're interested in looking at it. But I shared about how it's been really mind-blowing now to look back and see the impact this has had on my life because I'm sitting here in our dream house that was just a vision in my mind not long ago, like a year and a half, nearly coming up to 2 years. But it was just a vision in my mind at one point with absolutely no idea how we would bring this about. And then the things that I'm experiencing with my incredible horse Poppy were all visualizations that were just thoughts that I held in my mind before they became a reality. And at that point, when I was writing them all down, I've gone back through my journals and I've seen like the vision as I was creating it and the words I wrote, and then listening to the hypnosis audios that I have, like listening back is mind blowing because everything that I was describing, like I am experiencing regularly with Poppy now, like the rainless riding, riding and cantering on the beach, and just experiencing that really incredible connection that I feel with her. This was all things that I once was just a vision. And as I said, like at the time when I was writing all this down, there was still parts of me that didn't believe it was possible. And I was like, right. But I know that this is part of it. Like, if you don't know what your vision is, then how could you ever possibly reach it? So, even if right now you don't fully believe it, the first step, which many people don't even get to, is actually crafting that vision because you've got to know what you want to be able to move towards it. And so in the group, I posted pictures and there's videos of Poppy and I doing rainless riding, and there's pictures of our dream home. And I'd written in our journal, like, we're living in a nature sanctuary, surrounded by nature and forest. And now you'll see, if you want to look at it, there's a post of our backyard and it's literally forest, and it really is a nature sanctuary. And everything that I'd written, like about like we had a blueprint for the home because originally we thought we were going to build it. Um, and long story short, we came up against all sorts of obstacles, but then we found our dream home, and this home is almost identical to the blueprint. So the vision that we had in our minds, um, we saw it come to life in this home that was actually already built. And that's a really incredible story. I'll also pop a link below to a podcast if you want to hear more of that story. But I don't share all this just to like brag or show off. I share it so that you can feel into, if this is possible for me, it's possible for you. And I want to share about the power of visualization, so which is why I'm sharing like the impact that it has had on my life. And today I just wanted to share like 3 simple steps that you can start practicing right now that will help shift things for you. But of course, I do want to mention, like, it would be remiss of me to say that this is the only thing I did. Of course, there was more things that I did, and I've included all of that in the Healed Horseman's Journey program. And that's where we can get incredibly in depth and we can get deep into your subconscious and find any limiting beliefs that are holding you back. And it's like weeding the garden and pulling them out at the roots, and then you're able to really absorb all of the new suggestions that we put in the hypnosis audios where you are actively visualizing. Your mind is able to accept them, and you don't have the weeds coming back taking over your beautiful garden that you're planting, which is the visualization. So, but these steps I absolutely have done on the journey and have made a huge difference. And so I just wanted to point out, like, really getting into the power of it. Like every single athlete who has won a gold medal at the Olympics has 100% seen themselves standing up on that podium long before it became a reality. And a lot of people hear this and think, well, it can't be that simple. And so they write it off, uh, and they just, yeah, write it off and think surely it can't be that. But this is a massive part of it. And so then we have other beliefs that we have taken on during our lives that make it harder to believe this. So we hear things like it's got to be incredibly hard work, and so the thought of visualizing and that having a huge impact, it seems too good to be true, but that's just because of the programming that we've received of these beliefs like you have to work really, really hard and those sorts of things. But when we have our thoughts that are in alignment with our feelings and our actions that are working towards the goal or the vision, then things can actually move in incredible ways, and ways that at one point we may not have thought was possible. But the person who gets up at 4 a.m. to practice for the Olympics is doing that because they believe they can win the gold medal. If they didn't have that belief and they didn't see themselves on that podium, they wouldn't be getting up each and every day to do that. And so you can see how important it is to rewire your mind to have the belief in yourself. Otherwise, you won't follow through with the actions. And so the thing here is to realize the importance of not only doing the visualizations like in the morning, when you wake up is a great time, and also before you go to bed at night is a great time because your mind is in that state where it's easier for you to take on suggestions. And like I said, I'll pop a link below so you can get started with free visualizations that will help you straight away. And but the key is that it's no good just doing the visualizations and then feeling it for the 10 minutes that you're in them, and then for the rest of the day you're thinking things like, well, I haven't reached my vision yet, or you're worrying about things like, perhaps if it's, you're focusing on the vision with your horse, maybe throughout the day you're worrying about how your horse will react in the next session, or you're worried about perhaps having your next lesson with your instructor and feeling like you haven't progressed enough, things like that. If you are just visualizing for 10 minutes and then for the rest of the day, when you are thinking about your horse, you're having those sorts of thoughts, then you are undoing the work that you've done in the visualization. So this lesson is all about how can you embody this throughout the day as well. And so it's like if we want to be a calm and confident leader for our horses, but then like all throughout the day we're like reacting to our kids or maybe our colleagues at work and getting really caught up in their emotions, or maybe it's like you're in traffic and you get cut off by someone and you get really annoyed, um, then you can see, okay, at that moment I wasn't embodying the vision and really living it. And it's important because how you do one thing is how you do everything. So if you're reacting in these ways away from your horses, it's likely that you will be doing similar things when you're with them. And so, could you use these moment to moments as practice ground, which we'll get into? But let's go through the three simple steps that will help you right now to move towards your vision. So, what would shift if you truly did believe, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand? Like, if you truly believe that, what would change for you? Because for the longest time, I didn't truly believe that. So, like, I wasn't prioritizing things like visualization. And since knowing this, like, I haven't gone a day without listening to my hypnosis audios or doing visualizations because I know how incredibly powerful they are. So, for you, what would shift? Would you say things like, I'm too busy for that? Because that sentence would really no longer make any sense. It'd be like, this is the most important thing that I could possibly be doing right now. And would you take time to actually craft your vision and get detailed and really start feeling it? Because the feeling is so important. If we're just seeing it, but we're not really feeling it, you're not connected with your subconscious, and that's when things start to shift. So, when we get the details and we see it in our mind, and then we can really feel it, that really helps. So, that's the first question. What would change if you truly believed that if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand? And then choose to spend that time. If it's like, yep, I'll be prioritizing visualization, you can take that step right now and follow the link below to get started with daily visualizations that are completely free that you can start with. And then step two is, what are you doing right now that you'll also be doing when you reach the vision? So this could be things like simple things like washing the dishes or driving your car. How would you feel doing these things when you've achieved the vision, and how can you bring these feelings into right now? So for me, when I think of like my current vision, because we're always growing and expanding, so once we reach the next goal, we have another a goal that we can reach towards, because the aim of the game is expansion and growth, and that's when we feel our most alive. So it's not like it's ever like you reach the goal and then it's completely done. It's like, just like everything in nature, we're always growing, and if we're not growing, we're dying. So how can we fall in love with the process of creating the goal if we're always going to be in that in between place? Like, once we reach the goal, we're going to have another goal. So, what would it look like to really love the process? And how would it feel once you've already reached that goal? What would that feel like in your body? And how can you start embodying that right now when you're doing the dishes and when you're driving your car? And I noticed this for myself, like I practiced because at the moment I drive my car on my way to see my horses. And like, I have been practicing this like by putting on music on my way out there and listening to a really intentional playlist that I created that helps me feel these feelings of like joy, being really playful, and like inspiring songs where I really feel my power, like This Girl Is on Fire by Alicia Keys, and um, all these things that really make me feel those emotions already. And like, when I think of my vision, I'm thinking like, I'll be so proud of myself and proud of my horse. And so, how can we bring that into our day to day lives, moment to moment? Because this is what really shifts things. And when it starts with our thoughts. So you can ask yourself, what type of thoughts will I be thinking when I reach that vision? Will I be thinking how proud I am of myself and my horse? What will I be thinking that I learn new things easily. I'm always progressing. We're always moving forward. We're always learning. We're always growing. What are the type of thoughts that you'll be thinking? And then what are the emotions that you think when you think those thoughts? And then what sort of actions do you take? Because like when you are thinking like, I'm always growing with my horse. I'm always moving forward. We're always progressing. I'm always learning something new. The feelings that I feel when I say that is like really like empowerment, feeling like joyful, confident, and then the quality of actions you take in those feelings are going to be very different. So it might be like, yeah, I'm going to book that lesson. I'm going to do that clinic, and the way I show up is going to be completely different to how I have in the past because I'm choosing to think these new thoughts and to when I think these new thoughts, I'm feeling a different way and my actions are different. And you can see how that could completely change the trajectory. Tra I'm gonna skip that word. But you can see how that could change the path of where you're going to end up, like phenomenally, hugely. I'll give an example of when so, okay, say you're thinking old thoughts of my horse and I are stuck. I worry about how my horse is going to react in situations, and then I worry about how I will react to that. I don't feel confident. I feel like others are better than me. I beat myself up. So what feelings do you feel? It's likely that you feel disempowered, like you feel not happy. You might be feeling sad. You might be feeling just these feelings of like you're really stuck, like you can't move. And so the actions that you take in that state are likely to be things like no action, like procrastination. You're feeling overwhelmed, so you're thinking there's all these things you should be doing, and but you can't take those actions. And it's not that you can't, it's just that the thoughts you're thinking lead to these emotions, and it really feels like you absolutely can't. And, when we get to the root cause of this, which we dive really deep into in the Healed Horseman's Journey program, you can heal it on that subconscious level, and it changes the thoughts that tend to pop up automatically. And you're like, I don't feel like I have control over these thoughts. Well, when you do the subconscious work, you'll find that more and more thoughts that pop up automatically are more helpful thoughts, more empowering thoughts. And it doesn't feel like it's consistently, you're always having to refocus your mind. And the visualizations below will also help with that. And the third thing is to at the end of your day is to evaluate your day. So each at the end of the day, you're either intentionally collecting evidence to support your belief that you are moving closer to your vision, because that's another way that we can change our beliefs is by choosing and deciding to look for evidence that you are moving forward. And that could be really simple things like acknowledging that when you got ready for your session with your horse today, like for me, I thought about the other day, like driving out to my horse and listening to the playlist and how I really felt like so enthusiastic and joyful and so just grateful that I have this incredible horse that I get to spend time with. And I just notice by having that intentional time, the quality of our session was really amazing. So I use that as evidence to go, yeah, like this is more evidence that we're moving closer and closer to the next goal that I'm aiming for. And then it's likely that you'll also have times where throughout the day that you weren't embodying that vision, because and that's absolutely normal. Like, we're not going to be perfect at this. And so what you can do there is to have a redo, and knowing what you know about visualization and how incredibly impactful that is. Like, what if you chose to visualize yourself through the same scenario that happened, and maybe you reacted to a situation where you're like, oh, like, I wish I had been more calm and confident there, but I snapped, or I got really anxious in this situation. How could you go have a redo in your mind and see yourself responding really calmly or confidently, or like responding in an opposite way than you ever have before? This is another way that we can take huge jumps forward. Um, is when we really, like, we ask us, one of my mentors says, like, how could I surprise myself and others with how I respond to this situation? And so for me, I'll give an example. The other day, we had a literal stick stab through the roof of our dream home. And it went through the tin, and then it went through the ceiling, and made this hole in like our apartment that's attached to our home. And so, I was going through this material, and I was thinking, oh my, okay, how could I surprise myself with how I respond? Like, how relaxed could I be through this situation? And so I chose, like, intentionally, I was like, what if I just relaxed into it and knew that, like, we're going to sort this out, we'll figure it out. And like, what would it look like if I just like had a dance or like just started cracking jokes? So like I shared it online, and I had people messaging me like, "Oh my God, what happened?" And I was just being playful about it, like, "Oh, these bush ninjas," or just silly things, but it's something that I wouldn't have done in the past, like with cracking jokes about it. And it really helped me move through it in a more playful way and a more productive way, because then, having these different thoughts like, oh, this is something that we can sort out, and this is something that we can move through, it leads to different feelings. Like, I feel empowered. What can we do in this moment? And, at the time it's like nighttime and it's raining. So we're like, well, at least we can put like buckets down and to collect the water. And then the next day we're like, what can we do? We can replace a bit of that tin. So at least we make it watertight. So you can see that the way that you respond gets to be a choice, and we're not always going to be perfect. And that's definitely not how I would have responded in the past. Like, let me make that perfectly clear. Like, there have been times in my past where I would have been an absolute nervous ninny over that and just thinking of all the worst case scenarios. But through all of this work and with RTT and learning all about the power of our minds, like, and reprogramming my mind, I've learnt how to rewire it and to choose to respond in different ways. And so those are the three steps. So what would change if you truly believe that if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand? Would you actually start prioritizing visualization? Would you get crystal clear on what your vision looks like? And how can you commit to that? And what's one thing you could do? And you could start listening to a visualization that I have below if that's something that you feel called to. Step two, what are you already doing now that you will also be doing when you reach that vision, so that you can start embodying those feelings right now? Washing the dishes, driving your car, eating lunch. How will you be feeling once you reach that vision, and how can you bring those feelings into the here and now? And then the step three is like evaluating your day and collecting evidence to show your mind you are moving towards that vision. And what we focus on expands. So the more you focus on that, the more evidence you will find, and you'll just feel yourself really accelerating towards that vision. And then if you notice there were times when you were off track, know that that's perfectly normal. You're human. We all do this. I still do this, of course. And then we can redo and we can replay in our mind. How would I love to respond to that situation? And replay it in your mind as though, like in your vision, like where you are being calm and confident and feeling that, and then seeing yourself next time responding that way. So, those are three tips that you can get started with straight away. I'll pop, like I said, the link to the visualization that you can get started with right now below in the description. And if you know that you want to dive deep into this work where we get really deep into your subconscious mind and completely rewire these beliefs so that you can create these visions with your horses, you can also use it in other areas of your life. That's what we do in the Healed Horseman's Journey, and I'll pop a link for that in the description below. You can also reach out and book a free call if you're wondering if this is right for me. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one.